In this episode, I'm first going to do a bit of a quick historical review on why certain branches of the military are more difficult to retrieve personal records for. The U.S. Army being the one I've run up against the most problems for items in my collection. It all stems from July 12th, 1973, in a fire at the National Personal Records Center in St. Louis, Missouri, which destroyed about 17 million military personnel files. The National Personnel Records Center was formed in 1956 and by 1973 had amassed 52 million individual personnel records. The Department of Defense had constructed a 6-story building outside of St. Louis, Missouri, to house these records. Despite being, for the time, a state-of-the-art building, the facility had two major flaws. Its floors were basically open spaces from wall to wall with no barriers to contain a potential fire to a limited area. And there was no sprinkler fire suppression system. The reason being that those in charge felt fire was less of a danger to the records than an accidental sprinkler activation or a water leak from the system's piping. At 12:16 a.m. on July 12, 1973, the Olivet Fire Department received the first calls. The top floor of the 6-story building was on fire. Unfortunately, due to the lack of barriers and a fire suppression system, combined with the nature of the material stored there, the firefighters were forced to withdraw from the building at 3:15 a.m. A total of 42 fire districts fought the blaze for 22 hours, doing their best while low water pressure and failing pump trucks hindered their efforts. Even with these setbacks, the fire was contained to just the 6th floor of the building. It took another 2 days before they could re-enter the building, and a total of 4 days before the fire was finally extinguished. To this day, the aftermath of the fire and the attempts to recover and preserve records damaged in the fire continue. I will leave a link in the description for an episode of The History Guy that covers this fire and those efforts in far greater detail. Now, with all that said, there is a small item in my collection, a tiny photo mailer, that is fashioned to look like a canvas and leather bag. It's barely larger than 2/4 placed edge to edge. An address attached by some red threads reads, "From Corporal Weldon E. Fultz, U.S. Army, APO," which means Army Post Office, number 940, care of the Postmaster in Seattle, Washington. APO 940 was situated in Fort Ray, Sitka, Alaska, and I will include a link in the description, a PDF file that goes over some of the U.S. Army operations and the base that was situated there. The recipient's address is Miss Nina Fultz, Salem, West Virginia. The item caught my attention as it contains small photos which are about the same size as what were known as cigarette cards in the teens and 20s. They show various scenes of Seattle Harbor and Bremerton Navy Yard and its cranes, along with shots of Navy ships at anchor, the canal locks, and 2 specific U.S. Navy ships, the USS California and the USS Saratoga, and the very streamlined public ferry, the Calaca. All in all, a very small tourist trinket sent home by a serviceman to a relative while he was on his way to a base in a remote area of the world. What I was able to find out about Corporal Fultz was as follows. Weldon Earl Fultz was born on May 18th, 1921, in the city of Clarksburg, West Virginia. His place of residence at the time of his enlistment was Indianapolis, Indiana, and he stood 5 foot 5 inches tall and had brown eyes and brown hair. Excerpts from his obituary read, Pete grew up in Salem, West Virginia, and left to serve his country in the Army in World War II at the age of 19. On leave in Indiana, he met and married Lorene. They spent 40 years in Indianapolis, Indiana, and after retirement, they moved to Arizona. He was an extremely kind and gentle man who loved cars, bowling, playing cards, spending time with friends and family, and volunteering for the Arizona Wildlife Center. In the obituary, a sister named Nina appears, and in an online record of a book titled Fulton County, Indiana Handbook, Servicemen, World War II, Letters 1940 through 1943 by Wendell C. and John B. Tombaugh, which had a limited edition run of 66 total copies, there is a letter from a serviceman, Jesse Calvert, that reads as follows. Dear Mrs. Fultz, I received your season's greeting card today and thought it very beautiful. I also received the bulletin on your manhood and alcohol, and I thought it very logical and interesting. It is certainly a very truthful bulletin in every statement therein. If every man in the Army would take heed to such advice, it certainly would be a grand thing. But there's always a certain amount of people that don't heed to good advice. I'm very proud to say that neither of my close buddies or I are users of alcoholic beverages. I've seen enough of its evil work since I've been in service to always keep me from indulging in it. Are the members of the Women's Christian Temperance Union sending greeting cards to the boys in service? I think it is very thoughtful and nice of them to do so. We boys in the service really appreciate the thoughtfulness of the people at home and the members of our church, and we are all looking forward to the day where we can be home with our families and friends once more and attend the services of church. You probably wonder if we had a big dinner today. We did have a very nice dinner with roast turkey, pumpkin pie, and all the trimmings that go with such a dinner. Well, I wish to thank you again for the wonderful card. Your friend, Jesse Calvert. This was recorded in the News Sentinel, Thursday, December 3rd, 1942. So it appears that not only Weldon did his part for the effort, with this letter possibly being to Weldon's mother, or perhaps even to the addressee, Nina Fultz. Pete Weldon Fultz, 86, devoted husband, father, and grandfather, passed on August 10th, 2007. If you find these videos interesting or of worth, please, as every YouTuber says, hit the like and subscribe button. And also, I will drop a link to my Patreon account if you would like to help support my efforts in documenting the sailors and soldiers that were the owners of items that now reside in my personal collection. Thank you.